Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today. Thank you to our leadership who's present as well. I'm going to ask Mr. Cabrera and the board to come out. We want to take some time. I know you all have follow-up questions today after yesterday's board meeting, after they have officially called for a November bond. So at this time, I believe they're coming out. Come on out. And I will turn it over to Ms. Fennenbach and Mr. Cabrera, and we have some of the other trustees available as well.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here on behalf of the Board of Trustees. I'd like to welcome you to this, our first media event that is part of the 2016 Episd bond campaign. As most of you know, the board called for unanimously last night for a bond election that will allow our taxpayers to have a say in the modernization of our facilities. The bond election is the result of over 2 years of preparation and analysis from the district in an effort to address the condition of our campuses. The board feels strongly that it is the right thing for Episd at this time. The bond was formed using a transparent process in which diverse members of our community came together as a committee to vet and discuss projects. The proposed bond is the result of their hard work and their dedication to Episd. Voters will decide to make an investment in our schools on the November 8th ballot. Episd, under the leadership of Superintendent Juan Cabrera, is on track to become a premier school district with innovative, forward-thinking programs. Our campuses, which are on average 50 years old, need to match the programs and provide modern learning environments. We also need to be fiscally responsible in right-sizing the district to better reflect our current enrollment and diminish the budgetary impact of operating underutilized schools. The state of Texas only gives school districts funding for day-to-day operations, meaning that local school districts must pay for repairs and new schools through voter-approved bonds. Episd has not raised the tax rate in 9 years, yet we must be competitive with teacher compensation and modern facilities. Passing a bond now will save taxpayer money because it is cheaper to make these improvements today rather than waiting to do them 2 or 3 years from now. We as a board will communicate these issues to the public and our constituents and allow them to make their own assessment before they head to the polls. Before we take questions, I'd like to introduce Mr. Cabrera, who has some words as well.
Thank you, President Fennenbach. Thank you very much for coming. This is a big day for Episd. Last night, the Board of Trustees took a historic step in calling for the 2016 Episd bond election. Their decision to move forward with this process is one that shows foresight and leadership. Many of our campuses have been neglected for decades, and if this bond is approved, it would address many of the infrastructure needs that have been identified. It will also support our academic rollout of active learning environments for our children. We need modern learning spaces in order to be able to achieve our goals. Starting today, Episd will begin an aggressive informational campaign that will aim to provide facts and figures to the voters and taxpayers. In addition, we'll launch an Episd 2016 bond website that will house as much information as possible regarding the bond. It will also include a calendar of events that will show where and when the district will meet with stakeholders. We invite residents, parents, and voters to visit the website and to also hopefully attend the events. Before we turn it over to questions, I just want to briefly talk about what this bond would do for Episd. First, it would bring safety and security improvements to protect students and teachers, technology updates to create modern learning environments and prepare students for jobs in today's and future job market, maintenance and repairs of aged and blighted buildings, purchase new buses to update current aging fleets, improved, updated, and athletic and fine arts facilities, and consolidation of underutilized schools to save us $14 million annually in operating expenses. So with that, we'll open it up to questions for myself or for any of the trustees.
Could you describe that information campaign, how much it will cost, what it will entail?
With regard to that, this is information that we've put together over the last 2 or 3 years as we've analyzed the facilities needs. We started with a Jacob study in 2013, all of 2014. So a lot of the information is just relative to our needs as a district and what we want to do in terms of modern learning environments. This is just in the regular course of business, whether or not we'd be asking the taxpayers for a bond. We need to keep up with our facilities and understand what our needs are across the district.
So is that information campaign, TV spots, flyers? What is it?
From our standpoint, because we're a tax-funded entity, we cannot pay for promotional or advocacy spots. What we can do is give information about the needs of the district. And so that's what our side of it will be for the district.
Let me add to that the district campaign is informational only. We expect that there will be a PAC formed that will be an advocacy piece and help mobilize voters to get out the vote.
What if the bond fails? Are there any backup plans?
The bond is an important investment for our community right now. The Citizens Committee worked off of the Jacobs Engineering Report and 2 other nationally recognized engineering firms that identified $1.2 billion worth of needed projects today. They were able to create a bond of approximately half that size, and these are investments that we need to make today. So we are focused on making sure that the voters go to the ballot November 8th informed and ready to make the right decision.
So is there a backup plan, though?
The bond and the consolidations need to happen. Sadly, we have declining enrollment and many facilities that sit half empty. So we will have to realize the efficiencies by right-sizing the district.
Right, but if it did fail, would you guys ever come with another bond to maybe be less than $668.7 million? Maybe a bond the size of what YISD has?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
If it does fail, would you guys come back with a smaller number than $668.7 million, maybe the size of what YISD has?
Again, we're focused on, we had $1.2 billion of need. This is the amount that 80 people across the district is recommending to us that we invest in today, and that's the information we need to get into the community.
And I know you guys had a week to go over it before you made your guys' final decision for approval. Did you guys ever consider maybe cutting some of the costs down from the actual proposal?
We are, all the trustees and I and the administration were very sensitive to the tax impact to the community. There are many demands on our citizens and our taxes. We feel that the time is right today to invest in our community and our children. Schools and good schools are the cornerstone of a vibrant community, and El Paso is growing. It's time that we invest in our schools today.
So would that be a no? You guys never considered to maybe go lower than that?
We had 80 citizens who prepared this bond proposal. It would be very difficult for us to determine how we could add to or take away from the proposal that was presented by them.
Did EPISD learn anything from seeing YISD's bond fail the first time around?
The first time around, I think that they took a top-down approach. The second time around, they used a citizens approach, a community approach, which is an approach that EPISD has used. This, again, is a recommendation that was brought to us by 80 people from across the district, and they are asking us to invest in our schools today, and I think that will resonate with voters in November.
A lot of our viewers and a lot of people that we've spoken to say they're really not in favor for this bond. What are you guys going to do to try to change those people's minds?
The community needs to understand the needs of our district. Many people in the community don't understand that we have declining enrollment. We're losing about 1,000 children a year. That's the size of a small high school. So People don't understand that we have schools and facilities that sit half empty. People need to understand that by each school consolidation, we can realize almost $1 million in operational efficiencies, and that's money that can be reinvested in the classroom where they benefit our kids. So I think that as long as they have the right information, and they go to the ballots informed, they'll make the right choice.
Now, you guys are still kind of in the process of trying to figure out, what projects to start on first if this thing goes through. How are you guys going to determine which project should go first, and how are you guys going to advertise that to the people in the district?
So the process that goes on out, obviously we had the vote last night. A week before that, we had the recommendation from the Facilities Committee. From the administrative side, we were really on hold in terms of making final plans of what would happen with a successful bond. We will begin the work today. We have begun the work today to begin to look at phasing. That has to be done with architects and engineers. We do have folks on staff that do that, but we're going to use professionals, bond program management folks that would look at that now, phasing. What's most important in that process is, as much as possible, trying to make sure we do not disrupt educational time. So students and teachers, making it convenient for them. A lot of care is given into how you phase projects so that none of that is disrupted. These schools take so long to build, you can never do it during the summer or even during the school year. So we know there will be some disruption. That's going to be the highest priority, and we'll get that done between now and the time that we go to the ballot box in November.
Okay, so when you guys are going to start constructing this, if this is approved, are you guys going to transfer some kids to different schools, or are you guys going to, what is the plan for that?
And that's why we have the experts help us with that. The goal is to try to minimize that as much as possible. Remember, in every situation where there's a closure, there's a consolidation. So what you would like to try to do is build somewhere else as you're consolidating, and that way you disrupt as much as possible. We do have accessibility to about 90 portables that are part of our inventory, but we will definitely take that into account before we do anything else. What would be the least disruptive?
Okay, now that I have you here about all the projects, you guys are saying about 3 to 5 years. Is that 3 to 5 years when it should be complete, or 3 to 5 years to get these projects rolling?
3 to 5 years from when we get started. If this process, let's assume that we have a successful bond in November of 16. It probably takes 6 to 8 months just for the first projects to get started. So then we'll be on an aggressive timeline from there to get everything done in 3 to 5 years.
So you guys are trying to get 29 projects done in 3 to 5 years?
Yes. In order to realize the efficiency savings, we need to move as quickly as possible. So it will be very high priority for us to get this done.
I want to add that the committee that made the recommendation to the Board of Trustees, they looked at a survey of the community and to talk about the bond and the size of the bond and the projects that would possibly be included in the bond. And an informed voter who understands the needs of the district, understands the opportunities presented by the bond, shows that they will come out in favor by about 65%. So that we feel that the time is right. As long as our community understands what we're trying to do, how this will benefit our kids, and the burden is on us to educate the community, that we'll have the support.
Is there chances for, I know that last time in the presentation there was 9 school consolidations, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. Is there any chances for any more school consolidations in this bond?
Not as part of the bond, and it's important to know that the consolidations need to happen. We are declining in enrollment. We need to operate more efficiently, and we need to focus our resources in the classroom and on kids. We are hoping that with the bond, we are able to consolidate schools and build a newer classroom for kids, as opposed to consolidating schools and moving kids into another old building.
All right, so for this 3 to 5 years for this bond plan, only 9 schools should be consolidated. There shouldn't be any more than that for the 3 to 5 years, right?
As part of this bond, 9 schools will be affected.
What kind of work are we talking about until November in terms of convincing voters to get to the polls and to vote for the bond? I mean, as far as billboards, I know you mentioned the PAC group, but what kind of work are we talking here?
Are you talking about the district work or the PAC work?
The district work and the PAC work.
You want to talk about the district work?
For the district, it's just about information, about what we need, the needs that we have. Again, we had the $1.2 billion that was identified by a national engineering firm in 2014. We've whittled that down. The managers had a plan they put forward in April of 15. Then the Facilities Committee got to look at everything all over again. So we just need to talk about what the specific $668 million would do, the needs that we have in the district, and focus on that from our side. It's just more information and education.
Again, if you look at the PAC for the city, for example, for the quality of life, we would presumably follow the same pattern, make sure that we are pressing information out into the community and that voters come to the election in November informed and prepared. There's still a lot of distrust with parents in the district. How are you hoping to work against that? The trustees have been in office for a year, and the district has really been at its lowest point. But we've turned a corner. If you look at what the trustees have accomplished over the past year, we've passed 2 balanced budgets. We went out for a TRE election, a tax ratification election, where we were able to access over $14 million in additional state funds at no local tax increase. We were the first in the state to become a district of innovation. Other districts are now looking at Episd as a lighthouse district for innovative school programs. And I think as long as our community understands what's happening under the leadership of Superintendent Cabrera and my fellow trustees, we will slowly and surely rebuild that trust. It takes time. I am certain we've turned a corner. We just need to get the information out there. Any other questions?
Why do you think it took so long to come up with this bond since the previous one?
It began with the Board of Managers. The first Jacobs Engineering study was about 3 years ago. The Board of Managers had the opportunity to review that plan. I actually co-chaired the Facilities Committee at that time under the Board of Managers. And no one understood the severity of the declining enrollment and the severity of need. Because it was so grave, the Board of Managers, I think, made a wise decision to defer that to an elected Board of Trustees as opposed to trying to force consolidations, it's very difficult, onto a community. So it began with that process. When the trustees came on board, we had other priorities, passing the budget, the tax ratification election, forming the strategic plan, El Paso ISD 2020, and we picked up facilities again in January. So just because of the turmoil in the district, the turnover in leadership, it took this while to come back around.
Could you talk about your schedule or plan in the months ahead in terms of speaking to community groups, getting your message out there?
We're actually in the process of developing that as we speak. We had some tentative plans, hadn't finalized those, but in the next few days we're going to try to get out to as many community groups as we can, probably on a daily basis between now and November 8th.
As far as consolidating schools, were parents aware of that plan beforehand? Or just new to them?
The Board of Managers began the discussion about the consolidation of schools and the issue with declining enrollment and undercapacity of schools. So there have been, and I personally have been involved in many community meetings where we've discussed the need to consolidate schools. Now we're talking more about opportunities for new programs, opportunities for more technology, opportunities for better teacher compensation. It's a much bigger, broader picture because of the potential bond.
And can you emphasize, or can you talk about a little bit more about why these projects were voted on and approved?
Again, there were $1.2 billion worth of various projects, and the committee over 4 months, 80 people, they all came in with how they would prioritize all those projects, the 1.2, and how large of a bond that they would recommend. And from 80 plans, they had to whittle it down over a series of several meetings to the final product. And it was a very orchestrated, transparent process. Most of the trustees attended every meeting, certainly most of the meetings, just viewing, watching their process unfold. And I think each individual member would have their own answer for why they prioritized certain projects, but I think the collective product is just that. It was what they were able to build consensus around.
To the other trustees, do you have any comments on the concerns you're hearing in your districts and your plans moving forward?
As far as, obviously, the feedback is very early, and so certainly, you know, I'm hearing both sides, but from my area, the truth be said, it's very supportive. This bond is addressing major issues that address, for example, Jefferson High School. That's a community that has long felt that that they weren't getting what they needed. They weren't getting treatment in the past, and so with this, with what happened out of the committee, Jefferson is going to be addressed. The schools that feed to Jefferson are going to be addressed, such as Henderson becoming a PK through 8, and just the consolidation there and bringing new infrastructure and technology to the families who so much need it and can't afford that kind of infrastructure. They're very happy there. Obviously, the community north of the freeway that I represent, which is the Burgess community, most of the feedback I get was prior to this election and talking and discussing, because I haven't had a chance to go out there. But going into it, I've received significant support, and they're happy to hear the initial plans that were being presented to the committee. And my expectation, obviously, is we're going to hear both sides. But this district has a responsibility to educate the community, and we believe as a board that if we're effective in educating the community, the voters will come out in support of this bond.
I don't think there is a person in this town who thinks that this bond isn't needed. Every person I talk to says, yes, I understand you need to do this. The conflict is with the amount and the method. And what I tell them is, come over to my house, look at the data that I've read, come with me, go to the schools I've gone to, come with me, talk to all the experts that I've talked to, including my fellow board members. And at some point in time, you're going to have to say, we trust you people to do what's best for our children. And invariably they'll say, okay, I may not agree with your method, I may not agree with the amount, but I'm going to support you. And that's what I get from my district. And I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
What do you guys tell people who don't have kids that go to school in that district? How would you convince them to vote yes on this?
I live in a district where a lot of people are older, and this tax increase is not going to affect them. So they have told me they're going to vote for it because they understand the value of education. And I don't think there's a human being in El Paso who doesn't understand that education is important. And I don't think there's anybody who doesn't believe that a good physical plant, good programs are not going to help the education system. So what we've got to do, and we've got to do it really, really well, is to make sure that the people understand why we're doing it. And I think if they understand why, they'll say, okay, that figure that they've come up with is adequate. And I hope it is, because it's time for us to get started. We need to save money on taxes. We need to save money on interest. We need to save money on construction costs. And we've got to get this thing going. It has just been neglected for 30 years. And we can't neglect it any longer. Now, what we decided to do is a large amount of money. But I think it's the right amount based on the data that I've seen, based on the people I've talked to, and based on the schools that I visit. There are schools that literally are falling down around the children. We've got to fix that. And we can't keep putting it off. If we put it off any longer and say, okay, piecemeal this thing, it's going to cost us more in interest, it's going to cost us more in construction costs. Let's just do it. Let's bite the bullet, get it going, and get our kids into buildings where they're safe, where they can be educated, where the teachers are comfortable, and the programs can manifest themselves. Please, that's my plea. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Dye, and I see many committee members that are in this room, and I want to thank them for having spent all of the what is 10 times 5? The 50 hours that they spent. Lindsay Anderson attended every meeting. And the needs for our students are there. Right now, we have students that are sitting in classrooms that need roofs. We have students that are sitting in classrooms with asbestos tile coming loose from the floor. The needs are there. They're not going to go away. And we need to think about our children the most. So my thing is, I want to thank that 80-member citizen committee for all of the work that they did. 50 hours over 2 months' time, that's a lot of work. So we're respecting their decisions, and we're respecting what they think is the best for our students. My community, many are older, and most of them are veterans. Many of them, this won't affect their taxes at all. But we do need urban finished. We do need an elementary school in Northeast El Paso, one that's modern, and then we can consolidate those children into a modern, state-of-the-art school. So for my area, I just want to thank everybody for all the work that they did.
Okay, then that'll be the last comment. Thank you so much for coming out today. Gustavo and I will be hanging out in case you have any other further questions for us. Thank you so much. I know we'll have lots of follow-ups from here to November, so we'll keep you informed of future dates and future meetings. Thank you so much.
Listen, there are people in this room that have never been able to speak out. Ask them how the process went for them.